Welcome to Upright Origins, where we explore how humans came to walk the way we do. I'm your host, Achut Patel, and in today's episode, we're going to take a step back and look at how our ancestors began walking upright, why it matters, and what the fossil evidence tells us about this defining human trait. When we think about what makes us human, a few things come to mind, right? Our intelligence, our ability to use tools, our social structures. But before all that, one of the first things and most fundamental traits that set us apart from the rest of our ancestors was bipedalism, right? The ability to walk on two legs. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty details, what is bipedalism? Bipedalism is the means of locomotion on 2 feet, being able to walk on 2 feet. Something that among living primates, only humans do efficiently. It's one of the earliest evolutionary shifts that mark the beginning of the hominin lineage. And again, hominin lineage basically means the species lineage that is most closely related to modern humans than to any other living ape. Being bipedal reshaped nearly every aspect of our anatomy: our spine, pelvis, legs, and even our skull, believe it or not. This change freed our hands for tool use, improved our view of the landscape, and made long distance travel among open habitats and savanna lands more energy efficient. But bipedalism didn't just appear overnight. It took millions of years for that to happen through gradual evolution, and the fossil records helped us trace that when that happened. So let's go back a few million years to the origin of hominins, our earliest human ancestors, right? And see what made them start walking on 2 feet. Well, there are several hypotheses. One suggests that the African environment shifted from dense forests to more open savanna lands, which then standing upright allowed early hominins to see over tall grasses and spot predators or food sources. Another theory is that bipedalism freed the hands, making it easier to carry food or tools, and another focuses on energy efficiency. Walking on two legs uses less energy over long distances compared to moving on all four limbs. One of the most famous pieces of evidence for early bipedalism is a fossil known as Lucy, an Australopithecus afarensis, discovered in 1974 in Ethiopia. Lucy lived about 3.2 million years ago, and while her brain was still small, her skeletal structure showed clear adaptations for walking upright. Let's take a deeper dive into these structures. First, let's look at Lucy's pelvis. It was very short and broad, similar to ours. This shape supports internal organs while walking upright and provides attachment points for muscles that stabilize the body. Next, let's look at her femur, also known as her thigh bone. It's angled inwards, forming a valgus knee, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, which helps the body balance when walking on 2 feet, and when walking on two legs. Next, her feet. Although Lucy still had curved toes for tree climbing, her heel bones and arches indicated she spent most of her time walking upright. Her spine had a lumbar curve which helped keep her body aligned over her hips, essentially for balance in bipedal locomotion. These adaptations prove that bipedalism evolved long before larger brain sizes or tool use, meaning that walking upright was one of the first big steps towards becoming human. Other fossils support this evolutionary transition, such as Ardipithecus ramidus, dating back to around 4.4 million years ago, shows a combination of tree climbing, also the more scientific term, arboreal, and bipedal traits. Already had a grasping big toe for climbing, but her pelvis suggested she could also walk upright on the ground. Moving forward in time, fossils from Australopithecus africanus showed further refinement in hip and leg anatomy, which allowed for a more efficient mode for walking long distances. Eventually, we reach the genus Homo, with Homo habilis and Homo erectus. We see fully committed bipedalism through longer legs, shorter arms, and foot arches perfectly adapted for endurance, walking, and running. Research by Harcourt Smith and Aiello, done back in 2004, examined fossilized foot structures from early hominins and revealed how subtle but critical changes in the arch of the ankle and the toe alignment shaped the transition for modern human locomotion. Their analysis showed that early bipedal species, particularly Australopithecus afarensis and the later Homo forms, had already developed longitudinal and transverse arches in the foot. These arches acted as shock absorbers and helped store and release energy during walking, which is a key adaptation for making bipedalism more efficient and more habitual. They also found that the ankle joint, specifically the talus and calcaneus bones, which are your heel bones, evolved to be much stiffer and more stable, providing strong support during the heel strike and toe off phases of walking, which is when your heel goes down on the ground, and then toe off is when you move with the toes coming off the ground. This form of walking differs from the more flexible grasping ankles of modern apes. Additionally, the big toe, also known as the hallux, became more aligned with the other toes and is non-divergent, allowing it to push off the ground in a straighter line rather than being used for grasping branches. However, Harcourt Smith and Aiello noted that some earlier hominins, such as Australopithecus afarensis, retained curved fingers and other minor traits, suggesting that there was still some arboreal or tree climbing capabilities within these species. This indicated that while these species were bipedal, they likely still climbed for food and protection. Overall, their findings illustrate that the evolution of the human foot was a mosaic process rather than a linear one, combining adaptations for upright walking with lingering traits from our tree climbing ancestors. In essence, bipedalism was a game changer for human evolution. It allowed humans to travel greater distances more efficiently, use our hands for tool making and carrying food and caring for offspring. It kept our bodies cooler in the sun by reducing the surface area exposed to direct heat. But it wasn't all perfect. Walking upright also came with some costs, such as lower back pain, knee injuries, and childbirth complications due to the narrowing of the pelvis to allow bipedalism to be more efficient. Still, the advantages outweighed the downsides. Bipedalism freed our hands and our minds, quite literally, paving the way for tool use, language, and social cooperation. If we fast forward to today, it's fascinating to realize how much of our daily life still depends on bipedalism. For me, as a college student, walking across campus or playing tennis or hiking, I'm basically using the same biomechanical adaptations that have evolved millions of years ago. Even modern issues such as posture, orthopedic health, or shoe design trace back to the evolutionary lineage of upright walking. Our skeletons still carry the history of this transition, a mix of strengths and compromises that make us uniquely human. From early foragers to Neolithic farmers to Lucy and modern Homo sapiens, the story of bipedalism is the story of how we became who we are. It's a tale written in fossils, encoded in our bones, and lived out every time we stand, walk, or run. So next time you take a step, remember, you're walking in the footsteps of millions of years of evolution. And with that, thanks for tuning in on this episode of Upright Origins. I'm your host, Achyut Patel, and I hope you'll join me next time as we keep exploring the science of being human.